Steve Gurgley.
Thanks. Distinct. Distinct.
So the bridge was originally built in 1948, needed significant repairs, and the governor's phrase is getting stuff done, and they made it happen. This project replaced an outdated two-span steel girder bridge with a modern concrete structure that you see behind us today. This kind of infrastructure projects are essential for communities like Manheim, and this bridge connects the borough to Mount Joy and access to Route 283, ensuring our residents are able to travel safely to and from Lancaster, Harrisburg, and points beyond. Investments such as this ensure our transportation networks are safe, reliable, and capable of supporting local economies, and we greatly appreciate the governor's support and the secretary's support in making this happen. Next up, we'll have Ms. Heather Valutis from the Lancaster Chamber.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
Meander over on the stones.
You made it.
That's right. Good morning. Thank you to Governor Shapiro for the opportunity to speak today about a topic that's fundamental to both our daily lives and the broader economy here in Lancaster County. I'm Heather Valutis, President and CEO of the Lancaster Chamber. Our chamber has been a strong proponent for infrastructure improvements since our inception. 152 years ago, our chamber was formed by a group of business leaders seeking to address road conditions. That was the issue that brought them together, and we still talk about those same issues today, but certainly at a different scale. Lancaster, like many regions across Pennsylvania, relies heavily on its bridges. Whether we're crossing the Conestoga River, the Pequay Creek, or Rife Run, where we are today, these bridges form the backbone of our local transportation system. They connect communities, facilitate commerce, and ensure that residents have access to vital services like healthcare and education. But as we all know, this infrastructure is aging, and addressing needed improvements is a priority. Pennsylvania has been home to one of the largest numbers of structurally deficient bridges in the nation. Here in Lancaster, we are no strangers to this issue. We have 1,204 bridges in Lancaster County, and that is the exact number.
Okay.
Over many years, significant strides have been made to repair and replace bridges deemed structurally deficient and to maintain the condition of county and state-owned bridges. While PennDOT and local authorities have made strides, the fact remains that many of our bridges and the infrastructure throughout Pennsylvania needs repair or replacement. Some of these bridges are over 50 years old and no longer capable of handling traffic volumes or the weight of modern vehicles. Local, state, and federal investments are vital to keeping up with the needed improvements. This bridge carries over 11,000 vehicles every day, providing a demonstration of how our economy depends on the seamless flow of people and goods, especially given the agricultural and manufacturing richness of our county. Whether it's dairy, produce, let's get that word, or manufactured products, these sectors, among the many others, need reliable roads and bridges to transport their products to market, and delays that are caused by deteriorating infrastructure not only hinder business, but also increase costs for everyone. For Lancaster, this means jobs as well, both during the construction phase and long term, as improved transportation infrastructure helps existing businesses expand and run smoothly and attracts new businesses to the county. We are fortunate that there are investments taking place. State and federal funding for infrastructure improvements is available, thanks to initiatives aimed at revitalizing our transportation networks. We are grateful for the Shapiro administration and PennDOT's focus on leveraging federal resources to maximize investments, mobilizing grants to make needed improvements, and for supporting a safe and reliable transportation system. Investing in our infrastructure is an investment in our future, one that will yield benefits for generations to come. These investments in our roads and bridges support an efficient transportation network and position our county to ensure that our bridges remain strong, safe, and reliable, allowing Lancaster to thrive in the years ahead. Thank you for your investments in keeping our economy moving and our people connected. It's now my pleasure to welcome PennDOT Secretary Mike Carroll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Carroll, the PennDOT Secretary, and it's a pleasure to be here in Manheim Borough with all of you. I'm glad to be here also to celebrate the new bridge that we have here over Rife Run that carries 772 over the creek. I want to thank the PennDOT team, and especially Kevin Keefe and his District 8 folks for their wonderful work in Lancaster and in South Central PA. They take a second position to none when it comes to PennDOT folks across our state. As Heather said, about 11,000 vehicles a day carry this bridge carries. A lot of traffic trying to get to 283, as Heather said, to Lancaster and to Harrisburg, and to copy her phrase, points beyond. Well chosen words. That gets people to work, to school, to be able to live their life every day. And absent this bridge, a detour would be in place, and it would be a tremendous inconvenience for folks. So we know this bridge is critical to the economy here in Manheim. It's also critical to the economy of Lancaster County. And before this bridge replacement, the bridge was posted and it was in poor condition. And so I'm thrilled that we have this new bridge for the community here in Lancaster County. It's an example of the thousands of bridges that PennDOT and our construction partners have repaired and replaced in recent years. And I'm darn proud of the effort that PennDOT has made since the governor took office to advance a program that replaces structurally deficient bridges. As was mentioned, we lead the nation in that regard. So we remain focused on making even more investments across Pennsylvania and keeping our people and our economy moving. Our partnership with the transportation industry, our local governments, and many others will continue as we all work to get stuff done, as the governor says, for all Pennsylvanians. I want to thank the community for their patience. These projects always have a delivery span that results in some traffic disruptions, and I thank the local folks for their patience in the delivery of this project. And I know that we have much more work to do, as Heather said, but with the governor's leadership, especially with the decoupling of the state police funds that the governor advanced in the past two budgets with the support of the General Assembly, we'll direct even more state finances to deliver projects like this in Lancaster County and across our state. And we deliver those projects thanks to wonderful contractors, in this case, J.D. Ekman, and I'll bring Mike Perlosky to the podium. Michael.
Thanks, Secretary.
Good morning. Mike Perlosky, Vice President J.D. Ekman. We are one of the private partners of many that do work for PennDOT. This particular project started in 2023, $3.6 million low bid contract. We're talking about the investment in people, community, and all that. This had 14 to 20,000 labor hours spent building this bridge. That included 19 subcontractors, again, private entities that work for us, and we work for the department. On top of that, there was design firm of Gilson Thomas, Erdman Anthony, and Prudent were some of the consultant inspection and design firms. Troy Tanner, back here, Towner, with us was our superintendent on the job. He was here every day making this happen, making sure all the problems were taken care of. The investment in the infrastructure, not only is it just for the roads and the bridges, it infuses money into the local economy. When our guys come into town, 80 plus guys over the course of the job are here, they're spending money. It helps with all the materials. We're buying local. We're buying from the quarries, the blacktop plants, all local. Again, infusing money into the economy. It's been 11 years since Act 89 has passed. Got to get that addressed. A lot of the legislators don't remember. It's run out of time. But the IIJA, Jobs Act, and the federal level helped infuse a lot of money into this industry. We appreciate that on the federal level. And this year, the budget passed by Governor Shapiro helped move some of the money out of the motor license fund of the state police into the general fund, infusing money, again, into the infrastructure. We need more of that. Our industry keeps 40,000 self-sustaining families. It's great jobs, good people. We need more of them to get the work done and get this taken care of for everybody and get these roads and bridges fixed. So with that, I'd like to thank Governor Shapiro and introduce him and hear what he has some words to offer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mike, thank you very much. And it's good to be back in Manheim Township and with all of you. And Mike, let me say thank you to you and the good folks at J.D. Ekman. And I especially appreciate that you acknowledge Troy. You could tell by the different color of their vest that Troy was the one doing the hard work out there every day. I mean that with the most respect to you, Mike. Obviously, you're doing great work as well. But these are the guys who are out rebuilding our infrastructure. They deserve a lot of credit and a lot of thanks. They oftentimes go unnoticed, but I want you to know we appreciate you, Troy, and all of the different women and men who work with you every day to build bridges and roads and our other vital infrastructure. So thank you very, very much. We appreciate you. And let me just tell you, I respect the hell out of the work that they do. And I also very much respect the work that Secretary Mike Carroll and the incredible team at PennDOT do every day. Secretary Carroll is an outstanding leader of PennDOT, a great and trusted advisor to me in my cabinet. And I hope that the good people of Pennsylvania see the really significant impact he and the folks at PennDOT are having on our daily lives, getting people to and from where they need to go. And this is another example that the bridge behind me here in Manheim Township. Just last week, the Secretary and I were at Neville Island, which is a place near Pittsburgh. Many of you probably have not heard of it. You wonder why I'm raising it. Let me explain why. We were there to cite the completion of our administration's work on the I-79 bridge. That's a major interstate bridge, a major deal, and one that was a long time coming. Why do I cite that? Because just like the Neville Island Bridge, this smaller state-owned bridge behind me here in Manheim Township is just as important. The 11,000 people that are going over this every day rely on this vital infrastructure. And PennDOT and my administration are making clear that we want to rebuild all of our infrastructure, from our major interstate bridges to the ones that connect us here in our local communities. You know, this original West High Street Bridge over Rife Run was built way back in 1948, and as we've said, carries 11,000 people every day, those trying to get to their jobs, get their kids to school or to the doctor's appointment or to the soccer games or whatever it is. These are really critical arteries for us. But after 75 years, this bridge needed to be replaced. It needed that TLC, and it needed a focus of a dedicated team over at PennDOT. That's why the Commonwealth invested nearly $4 million in this project and employed over 80 highly skilled workers like Troy over the last year and a half to get this job done. Now, we've got this beautiful new bridge behind me that'll continue to be safe and reliable for drivers for decades to come. I wanted to be here today to highlight this bridge as part of our larger effort to invest in infrastructure all across Pennsylvania. This bridge behind me was one of 684 bridges that PennDOT repaired, replaced, or preserved last year. You know, I said we would get stuff done in our administration. This is yet another example, this bridge behind me, of getting stuff done. Let me put that 684 number in some context for you. 684 repaired, replaced bridges last year is 150 more bridges than the year before. That's a staggering increase in the number of bridges. And by the way, we also repaired 7,000 miles of roads. And to put that into some context, that meant that last year we did 500 more miles than the year before. So 184 more bridges, 150 more bridges, and 500 more miles of roads year over year. That's really significant. We are setting records here in Pennsylvania on the number of bridge and road projects. But it gets even better. We're not just setting those records here in Pennsylvania, we are quite literally leading the nation in the number of bridge repair projects. We repaired more poor condition bridges last year than any other state in the country. Let me state that again. Here in Pennsylvania, we repaired more poor condition bridges than any other state in the nation. I am damn proud of the people at PennDOT and Secretary Carroll and all of the workers who are out there on the front lines doing this work. And the good people of Pennsylvania should be proud of them as well. These bridges are critical arteries in our communities. I want to take a minute to thank our federal partners in Washington, D.C. as well. While this was a state-funded bridge project, so many of these projects require federal, state, and sometimes local funding as well. Led by Senator Casey, we are seeing more and more dollars flow into Pennsylvania. We are incredibly grateful for their leadership in Washington. I also want to make note of the fact that on a bipartisan basis, we're investing more state dollars in infrastructure than ever before. You heard some of the prior speakers talk about this, and I want to hit this with an exclamation point. I feel blessed to have the greatest police department in the country right here in Pennsylvania, and that is, of course, the Pennsylvania State Police. They do extraordinary work, and under our leadership, we've increased their ranks by 800 new state troopers that we've been able to get funding for. But for a long time in Pennsylvania, nearly a half a century, our great brave women and men in the Pennsylvania State Police quite literally had to compete for dollars with folks like Troy and others who were building our roads and bridges. Let me explain. The same fund that was used to fund our police was also being used to fund our infrastructure. And by the way, for about 50 years, folks knew that that wasn't the right way to do business. And people talked a good game about fixing it. Within the first 6 months of my administration, we got it done. We decoupled funding for the state police and our infrastructure. Why is that important? We now have dedicated funding for the state police, by the way, more than ever before, and we have dedicated funding for infrastructure more than ever before. And so no longer will they have to compete with one another for vital services and resources in our communities. That was done on a bipartisan basis. And listen, I think it's important to note, I recognize we're in election season. I'm certainly not here to be political, but one thing I know we can all agree on is there's too much division, there's too much polarization. And by the way, I'm also the only governor in the entire country with a divided legislature, meaning we've got one house, the Senate, led by Republicans, the other house, the House of Representatives, led by Democrats. Only governor in the whole country with that. And so even in these hyper-polarized times, here in Pennsylvania, we are showing that we can come together to get stuff done, to get common sense stuff done, like repairing our infrastructure. And by the way, getting it done at a level unmatched across the United States. And so, yeah, at a time where I know people feel really divided, I want the good people of Lancaster County and all across this Commonwealth to know that their tax dollars are being used smartly, effectively, efficiently, and for common sense stuff like this bridge right behind me. And you know what? When we put points on the board together, Democrats and Republicans, we should celebrate that. We should celebrate the workers that get it done. We should celebrate the dedicated team at PennDOT that gets it done. We should celebrate our local government partners who work with us to get this done. And we should celebrate those on the outside who work with us to create these accomplishments, like your local Chamber of Commerce, who's been involved in a lot of the progress we've made on infrastructure, on the tax cuts we've given families to afford childcare, and so many other things. So today is a great day for Pennsylvania. We continue to lead the nation, and we continue to show that we can bring people together to get stuff done. And we're grateful for all of you being here in Manheim Township today. And with that, we'd be happy to try and take some questions. I think Troy is going to jump in and Manheim Borough. My apologies, Manheim Borough. With that, I think Troy, you're going to answer all the questions from the media. Apologies to our good friends in Manheim Borough. Apologies. We've got thousands of townships and boroughs, so apologies. With that, we'll be happy to take a few questions, if there are any. If not,
yeah. What's the bipartisan infrastructure law provides some additional funding for infrastructure that runs out in 2026? How do you sustain it? Created beyond that time?
Look, I think we've got to keep working here in our state and with our federal partners to let them know that this sort of infusion of dollars for infrastructure, which by the way is not just roads and bridges, it's also internet and replacing, lead-filled water lines and things like that, that these are critical investments, common sense investments in our communities. And I'm going to continue to work with our congressional delegation, along with local leaders here in Pennsylvania to continue these investments.
Dennis Owens would like to know your thoughts on.
You're reading a question from Dennis?
I am. He texted me this morning. I do
he wouldn't be willing to drive here to ask it?
Yeah, I live right around the corner. It was.
Well, you tell Dennis. I'm going to answer his question, but I want the grief I'm giving him to appear on the nightly news. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
He wants to know your thoughts on the attempt by state Senate to arrest your Secretary of Brown, Pat Brown. Secretary of Revenue, Pat Brown.
Yeah, I mean, look, Secretary Pat Brown at the Department of Revenue is doing a great job. And what he has been asked to do is to provide taxpayers' private information to the state Senate. Senator Brown has been able to provide as much information as he is legally permitted to do. Secretary Brown needs to honor the law, which limits the private information that he can turn over. And he also wants to honor the request of the state Senate to answer their questions. And he is attempting to do both when he appears before the state Senate later today. He's also requested a directive from the state Supreme Court to be able to have some clear explanation as to what he is permitted to share. I think everybody here understands we want to protect the privacy of taxpayers, certainly. And we also want to be he also wants to be responsive to the requests of the state Senate. And he's in a very difficult position there, but I know he'll see his way through it. And I trust the courts will provide some greater clarity and direction to the Department of Revenue as time goes on here.
Quick follow-up, do taxpayers have the right to know details of any program that use tax money?
I didn't hear, sorry.
Do taxpayers have the right to know the details of any program that use tax money?
Well, certainly the taxpayers should have transparency on how their tax dollars are being spent, but the very state Senate that has required the Secretary to appear before him today have also passed laws restricting what information the Department of Revenue is permitted to turn over. And so we're hopeful the Supreme Court will step in and just provide some clarity on how to balance that. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the state Senate saying, answer our questions. And on the other hand, you've got the state Senate passing laws, literally making it impossible for the Revenue Secretary to answer those questions. Our administration certainly wants to provide whatever information we can legally provide to the state Senate. Thank you.
A couple days
You
ago,
promise you'll give Dennis some grief for me for not showing up?
Absolutely.
Good.
a couple days ago, you asked the question about the legality of Elon Musk's $1 million giveaway. Is that a question you've answered at this point about the legality of that, or have you directed the state AG's office to look into that?
Just to be clear, I didn't ask the question. I was on an appearance on Meet the Press, and they asked me the question. So I just want to clarify the way you asked that. I think that there are fair, legitimate questions being raised, and those questions being raised are ones for law enforcement, not for me. I was formerly in law enforcement. That's obviously no longer the case. I'm focused on the contrast in this election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and that's what I'm going to stay focused on. I've not had any conversations with the Attorney General here in Pennsylvania or any law enforcement officials.
There are employees at Franklin Marshall who say that the Lancaster County Elections Office has been improperly denying students voter registrations and depriving them of the ability to challenge the rejections. Secretary of State Al Schmidt said yesterday that appears to be the case. And do you have any thoughts on the situation?
Well, I know that Secretary Schmidt has been in conversations with county election folks here to make sure that students at F&M or any legal eligible voter is able to make sure that their registrations are processed and that they can participate in this election. I believe in general, when legal eligible voters participate in our democracy, whoever their choice is for a candidate, that strengthens our democracy. And I want to make sure that those legal eligible voters are able to participate. College students here in Pennsylvania, like those at F&M or any other college students, are allowed to register either at their home or at school. And they're going through that process now in Lancaster County to make sure that they are registered to vote at the place of their choosing so they can vote once in this election for their preferred candidates. It is my expectation that as a result of the back and forth between our great Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt, and the local leaders in Lancaster County, this issue will be resolved, and those students who are eligible will be able to cast their ballots.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Troy.